Hello, friends. I'm your host, Dave Layton, and welcome to Signs of Our Time, discovering America's heritage, one sign at a time. This podcast is designed to provide the story behind the story found on America's roadside historical signs. When we think of the Medal of Honor recipients, we often picture soldiers charging into battle under enemy fire. But today's story is about a physician, a reformer, a prisoner of war, and a woman who refused to let society's expectations define what she could accomplish. Her name was Mary Edwards Walker, and at the time of this podcast recording, she is the only woman to receive the Medal of Honor. Her story is a reminder that sometimes the most significant signs of a changing time are found in the lives of individuals who are willing to stand apart from the crowd. Mary Walker was born in 1832 in Oswego, New York, and from an early age she challenged many of the social conventions of her day. At a time where few women pursued professional careers, she earned a medical degree in 1855, becoming one of the relatively few female physicians in America. This alone would have been remarkable, but Mary Walker believed that women should have access to education, professional opportunities, and equal treatment under the law. Many people considered her ideas radical. Others viewed them as impractical. Well, history would eventually prove otherwise. When the American Civil War erupted in 1861, she immediately offered her services to the Union Army as a surgeon. But the Army refused because she was a woman. Well, rather than give up, she offered her services to work in military hospitals where treating wounded soldiers gradually earned respect through her skill and dedication. Eventually, she became the first female surgeon to serve with the United States Army. Every day she entered environments where many believed she did not belong. Yet she continued serving because wounded men needed care. Her focus remained on the mission rather than the obstacles. One of the most extraordinary chapters in her story occurred when she crossed into Confederate territory to care for wounded civilians and soldiers. The battle lines were fluid, and suspicions were common. Captured enemy scouts and spies was routine. In 1864, Confederate forces arrested her, believing that she was a spy. She spent months as a prisoner of war in Richmond before eventually being exchanged and released. After the war, President Andrew Johnson awarded her the Medal of Honor in recognition of her service and sacrifice, and Mary Walker became the first woman ever to receive the nation's highest military decoration. Yet the story did not end there. In 1917, military officials reviewed hundreds of Medals of Honor awards and removed her name from the rolls because she had served as a civilian contract surgeon rather than a commissioned officer. Actually, more than 900 awards were revoked during that review. Mary Walker refused to surrender her medal. She continued wearing it proudly until her death in 1919. 60 years later, in 1977, the Army restored her Medal of Honor, recognizing the significance of her contributions. History eventually corrected the record. Mary Walker lived during an era of tremendous change. The nation was wrestling with questions of freedom, equality, citizenship, and opportunity. The Civil War reshaped America. And Mary Walker stood at the intersection of many of those debates. She challenged assumptions about what women could do. She demonstrated that courage comes in many forms. She showed that service often requires perseverance in the face of opposition. Long before women gained the right to vote, before women entered the military in large numbers, and before women became common in medicine, Mary Walker was already living a life that pointed toward a different future. The story of Mary Walker is more than a story about the Medal of Honor. It is about conviction, perseverance, and using one's gifts in service to others, even when the path is difficult. More than a century after her death, her example continues to inspire anyone who has ever faced obstacles while pursuing a worthy calling. Courage often begins with a simple decision to serve where we are needed, to stand for what is right, and to keep moving forward when others say it cannot be done. Well, friends, there you have it, a story behind the story from America's historical signs and markers. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to subscribe and continue listening as we bring more episodes about the rich heritage of our great nation. I'm your host, Dave Layton, and thank you for listening and safe travels.